Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of More Than a Title, episode 6. I'm your host as usual, Jarrett Thomas. Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you guys for all the love as usual. And today we got a special guest, man. This brother, this is my actual brother, man. This is, my mentor, one of my closest friends. For those who aren't familiar with him, he's a senior digital marketing executive with over 20 years of experience. He's managed teams remotely, specializes in marketing, content creation, overall social media strategy. He's worked for global, huge brands, and is one of the most knowledgeable marketers that I know, man. So I'm honored to be a mentee of his, and I've learned and grown so much. So let's make a warm welcome for my brother, Ken Gibbs, man. How are you, bro?
Oh, good, B. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to see you make it to this place, man, all of your progression since we first met.
Thank you, bro. That means the world to me, man. And for those listening, I think it would be a good segue for us to just say how we met, man. I think that's really, I love the story, right? So for everybody listening, it was 2 years ago. I think it was a social media week, right? So Ken was presenting with Lala Milan. So those who don't know her, she's a big influencer on Instagram. And Ken is doing an awesome interview. So I'm in the stands like, yo, who is this brother that is killing it? Like I saw myself in Ken. And I saw myself in you, bro. So what immediately happened right afterwards, once we got off the stage, man, I just pulled Ken aside. It was like, hey, man, we'd love to be on your radar. We'd love to learn from you. And here we are today, man. It took a little while on LinkedIn. And then you hit me back one day. It's like, man, my executive assistant's going to reach out with you on time for Friday and tell me what works. Yep. And I was like, holy crap, you got an executive assistant and your brother? I'm like, what the yo? I was so excited, man. And I remember our first conversation, and we would talk about what we wanted and what I wanted for my career. And this is a place that I wanted to be. And I couldn't have gotten here without you, brother. Like, your guidance means the world to me. And that's why I love you for free, brother. So thank you for everything, man.
No doubt, man. I mean, thank you, quite honestly, for being engaged and giving me someone to pass all the wisdom and knowledge on to, right? I think what's most important is that we have people who are dedicated and committed and have shown us that. Because all I think people in my position want to do is make sure we're passing on the opportunity.
That's it. That's what it's all about, brother. So if you want to, man, let's start at the top, man. I know everybody is anxious to hear your story, brother. So, how did you get into the industry, brother? Like, how did you start off your marketing journey and your career?
I mean, hey, it was all luck, right? It was all luck. Let's keep it real. I specialize in social media right now, which is really connectivity between people. But I started making connections between people at the earliest stages of my life, right? When I was in Boston. Boston is a town that, is much like LA, not like New York, New Jersey, where I am now, where everything closes down after 1 o'clock. In Boston, you see the black media or black population, quite honestly, like everything ends at 11 o'clock and then it goes into after hours. Yep. Right. And that after hours created an opportunity for me. I started working with party promoters to get alongside them to basically sell alcohol at these after hours parties. Right. Mm-hmm. So it was early foray into networking. I did that for a few years during my high school years. Why was I able to do that in my high school years? I started growing this beard when I was 14 years old.
Had the goatee at 14, bro. Come on.
Yeah, so let's just say there's a long series of jokes about how I was way too old to be in high school and all that stuff, right? But I carry that on with me from high school to college, and in college, my first transition was also throwing spring break trips, right? Okay. So I think it was Sunspree. It was a while ago at this point, but yes, I reached out online and essentially found that. So I went on spring break one time that was thrown by the senior class when I was a freshman. Because when you go into college, spring break is all you want to do. And then the next year, that senior class decided not to throw a spring break trip. And I had enjoyed spring break so much the year prior that I could not be without it, quite honestly. Wow. So I got online, I started searching and trying to figure it out. I discovered Sunspree, Next thing you know, for the next 2 years, I had 2 buses coming from from the Northeast, full of college students from the New England area and Rutgers, taking them down to Fort Lauderdale, Fort Spring Break in Florida. So I continued to network, do that. I was an orientation leader. I was an RA in college. Everything that really kind of like leverages your connections. And I feel as though the internet was just the next thing to that. I went to school for English professional. I had 2 majors and a minor. English professional writing, communications, technical writing. But on the side, I was studying HTML. I was building websites. A friend of mine, his father was working for Compaq at that time. And as a result, he was able to furnish us with, cheap and frequent machines, right? It's because at that time, right now, a lot of the bandwidth exists in the browsers on the web, right? Like that's where a lot of the computing is done. Before it was done more so on the hardware side. So as his father would cycle through machines, he would just drop them off and share them with us. And I was going to Barnes and Nobles. I was getting HTML books. I was learning how to build sites and like HTML 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like all that. And it was a side hustle for me. I started building websites. So building them from the mechanic aspect, learning it from the hobbyist perspective, and then getting deeper and deeper into marketing and understanding how the marketing world was starting to intersect with what was happening on the web and finding out that it was essential. I think at that early point, a lot of it was like email marketing and what have you, and not really getting down into what could happen on the web. Now, personally, on the web, I was recognizing this as the next phase. All right. I was a young man. It's 1999, like around then. Right.
Was there something specific that made you say that? Or is it just the interaction that you was having? Like, correlating, doing the events and all that stuff that you're like, man, the internet, this is where it's at. Like, was there one thing that you said, hey, this is where I got to go?
I'm Black. In case you want to right? I'll be honest. I will be honest. So part of what happens, I think, when you're an undergrad, particularly, is there's all of these historical texts from Black authors that you encounter, you engage with. My parents were big on that, so I had read a lot of these before, and I had formed a lot of my mind state. But there was some in particular that I hadn't read. And I was just like, wow, it's insane to me that so much is so similar today, right? And it made me really think about the opportunities for progress and what they were. And so when the internet seemed to be this thing that many people didn't really understand what was happening. And as a Black person, I viewed it as a way to skip the traditional journey for just recognition in any traditional media, right? Because I think when you talk about traditional media, if you're Black, you're at the back, period. Right. And from my historical perspective and studying of all of these platforms, it was that, okay, this is one of the few that's actually starting within my lifetime. Right. So through just attention alone, I could possibly have an opportunity to start at the same time as everyone else. So I studied and I leaned in. Right. That's right. And I think what was really the deciding factor for me, because much of this was hypothesis, right? But I'm from Boston, and I'm from Boston. I'm from Mattapan. Right, like Mattapan is AKA Murderpan, like it's all of that. And so I knew I had a lot to fight against in order just to be recognized, despite being on the dean's list and all this stuff. Like it just, hey, there's a lot that colors you, so to speak, right? And one time, so Sarah Ann Shaw, who's a legendary Black reporter in the New England area, Boston in particular, she came to speak at my school. I made a connection with her. And she was from the inner city. She was from and lived in Roxbury, right? It's one of our neighboring neighborhoods. So I connected with her for internship and mentorship. And she took me to WBZ in Boston. And during that time, like she was giving me a tour of the studio and what have you. And I will never forget there was a time in which during that tour it was just her, myself, and another Black employee who worked at the network, and we were kind of like in a room together, right? And because it was just us, all Black folk at that moment, there was a moment in which we kind of had like this time to talk about those difficulties, right? Yeah. And now you got to remember, I'm still young and bright-eyed, right? So I'm not as beleaguered and being down by those difficulties, right? I'm still young and optimistic,
ready to conquer the world.
Yeah. And I just remember looking at that and thinking like, well, Cyrus the greatest, right? Like the greatest is encountering these difficulties right now. Right. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I really got to look into this .com stuff because this racism stuff is real.
Yeah.
Right. Like someone who's like, she's got a laundry list of accomplishments, and it was really just strategic. I'm a young professional like anyone else who does not want their progression to be hampered by their race, period. And when I saw the emergence of a new platform allowing me the opportunity to circumvent the traditional hurdle, it was one that I chose to get at the front of the line for, not even at the front of the line, but just at the starting line. So I could.
Yeah. That's real, and you just dropped a gem on that artist. I wish Jordan would have pulled up that clip just now. Had that. So basically, like you said, professional. As a professional, you want your career to be hampered by race, man. So I'm curious, man, because you've been around the block, man. You have a crazy journey, like just to be in the game for as long as you have, with like 20 plus years, bro. Like that's incredible, right? So I'm sure you experienced everything, right, from racism to being blocked to all those different things. So how have you been able to navigate that, bro? Like, how have you been able to get executive leadership buy-in on certain initiatives? How have you been able to navigate just us being Black professionals in America and still being where you are?
So a few different things. I say the first is to be conscious of who you are and conscious of the landscape before you, right? And conscious of how that landscape shifts. Right, depending on public position on certain events that are happening. Right. I think if you're a Black professional over the last 2 years, the murder of George Floyd may have opened up a lane and the sudden understanding and acceptance for a certain time.
Yeah.
Right. Suddenly you were human.
Yep. Right. No cooler time to be us.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate, but as a Black person who's been working in the space for over 20 years, it was very easy to see the shift that had been caused by such a tragic event, right? So I'll say that first and foremost.
For sure.
The other thing, aside from being conscious, what was the question again? Just so I make sure I'm framing.
Yeah, no, just how have you been able to navigate something like racism, for instance, in an industry that is mostly controlled by, people that are not Black?
Yeah, I mean, hey, so being conscious of it all, conscious of your Blackness, conscious of how people are reacting to that and their perspectives on your culture. All right. That's first and foremost. But I think the next part is that unfortunately, this is work and you can't necessarily be very emotional in work, right? Now, let's not confuse not being emotional with not being empathetic, right? But you can't afford to have an emotional reaction to ignorance, right? Because the reality is, hey, I live in a place that is much different from Murderpan, where I grew up at, right? And I think what's most daunting to me is that when I look out the window and I see what is the reality for my kids and the other kids who live here, and possibly the reality that their parents have known and their grandparents, right? We're all living in different worlds in many aspects of America, right? And I think, I've got the luxury of noticing that now and preparing my children for that, so I can inform them of my perspective along with the one that they live now, which is shared by many people who they might find themselves alongside in the office, right? But I think when you're in the office, it's really important to have an open mind as to the diversity of backgrounds that everybody comes from with their perspectives. right?
Yeah.
Because when you're in these shared environments in the office, you're all making you're all working on this one larger product,
Yeah.
right? That's for this audience that serves so many, right?
Yeah.
So the diversity that you encounter in the office should actually be respected and valued as opposed to viewed as the source of conflict,
Yeah.
right? So I always have looked at it in that way, right? I always say like, hey, I know what I do. I know who I am. I think I've got a pretty good sense of the values of my community, right? But I value the diversity in offices because we're making content for public consumption, and I think those perspectives help me make this message that much more well-rounded, right? But I
Absolutely.
do think it's always something you've got to be cognizant of and find a way to leverage and deliver more value through.
Yep, absolutely, man. And then you also touched on, since you said value, I know we talked about it in the back end, right? So, like, to somebody like yourself, I'm sure, especially in your role and roles that you've been in the past, you get 1,000 cold emails, people trying to, juggle for your time and get, FaceTime with you to sell a product, to build relationships. What is the best way to communicate with you? How would somebody, for instance, like an SDR at Hootsuite, how would they get on your radar to possibly sell service or connect with you?
You've got to propose value, but you've also got to show your understanding of
Your problem.
not only my personal level, but the level of the business that I serve and what that business recognizes as value.
That's it.
Right.
That's real.
Businesses are at different levels, right? Certain services are made for businesses of certain sizes. Certain businesses of certain sizes require a bit more. Right. These are all things that need to be kept in consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, guys, so for any SDR that's listening, right? So if you want to get to a level or reach out to like executive level like Ken, right? Value is everything, right? Make sure you understand the business, right? And it doesn't have to be so super deep, but how are we generating revenue and how does social media impact that, right? Impact that long range plan, right? So even if you just know from a high level, like say for instance, say Spotify is looking for subscribers, right? And you want to understand what the customer acquisition looks like and how can you generate more revenue and things like that, right? That type of conversation, you may get a bite versus you just saying, hey, we have a new product here and this is what we're doing. And you don't know what my goals are, right? That's never going to work. Never, ever going to work, right?
Never on the one-to-one. All
There
right.
you go.
Because
There
I
you go.
also think, people have problems. Identify that person and the problem that they have that you can help them solve. Right. So I'm a global head. I've got a different perspective, right? There may be an aspect of your tool that's more valuable to a counterpart in Japan. Right. So those are and that just really shows your nuance and research.
Yeah. But people wouldn't even think that, right? Like you said, because if once you say no, it's game over. It's like, he doesn't care. He's
I
not
mean,
reacting. No.
here's the thing. Like they say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Like, don't let yourself trying to get the whole cake stop you from filling your belly off of crumbs, right? Like,
That's it.
because it could be possible.
That's real, man. Has anybody curious though, since we're on this topic, has anybody did some cold outreach to you recently that was like, oh man, that was creative? I know you have to have one. You was like, all right, brother, I'm gonna give you a shot, bro. You got 10 minutes.
Well, let's just. I mean, I get cold outreach on all types of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've definitely had. I had one of recent that I can't really mention, but
Yeah.
the outreach was laden with a bunch of puns that were related to who they were, and I just had to respond to that like this was a good one.
Yeah. so yeah, anybody listening, creativity will get you a long way too if you don't know the business, right? So let your personality shine through. And that's a lot of stuff
Yes.
that I'm always talking about, right? Being your authentic self, right? Like for me, like how me and connected, which is me being my authentic self, right? It's just like, man, I had no ulterior motives. It was like, yo, Ken, brother, I would love to be on a stage one day. I would love to, understand and learn from you. And then we take it from there. And then from that, we just grew that relationship. But I've seen times where I think you know her too. So Kendra Thomas, she's a social media manager. I think you're connected with her on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So she's connected with me, and I sent her a little note like, "What up, cuzzo?" When's the barbecue? You know what I mean? Like, yo, tell Sharon don't do the damn potato salad, and we go. You know? And that's how we started our conversation. And that led to a 2-hour conversation offline, just talking about life and just becoming mad cool, right? So there's ways to do this. It doesn't have to be this, buttoned up thing. If that's not you, if you don't know it, you tap into your creativity, right? There's a lot of ways to get what you need to get done accomplished.
I agree. Be cognizant of your position, though, right?
Exactly.
And so what I will say is that despite being the global head, I still view myself, like Puffy says, as hungry as the day I just came in.
Yeah.
And I like to get down to that level when like working with people on my team and talking about creative and what have you, right? I'm obviously not as close to the cultural moments as they will be. So it's more of an even exchange there, right? But I'm looking to them for insight. Like, how hot is this really right now? Right? Because it might not be as hot tomorrow. It might not be as hot as it was yesterday because of some things that happen in the Zay guys. Like culture moves fast.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm comfortable with having those conversations. I was also privileged enough to be able to have those conversations as I was growing with Russell Simmons, Kevin Lyles, all these guys, right? So I'm a little bit more comfortable with leadership and authority in the space. And as I've grown on, or moved on rather in my career, I've encountered young people who haven't had that opportunity, and they regard me in a high regard, and I don't regard myself in that way, right? So I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why aren't you telling me your ideas, right? You just have to be self-aware, right? You have to be self-aware about how, like, I know this is about more than the title, right? But sometimes that title is keeping people from being genuine and authentic with you. So sometimes you have to go out of your way to help them understand that they can be comfortable sharing their creative ideas with you.
Yeah, that's so real, man. I know that's how I view you, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. The first time I must have told everybody on my block we were meeting. Like, my bro, man, I'm meeting the VP of VET, man. You don't understand, bro. My mama knew, pops knew. It was just like, and that's how I felt, man. And what it did for me was give me the confidence. If I can, have a connection with you, brother, like, who can I? Because the real conversations we have offline, right? Yeah. So I'm like, man, if me and you are having these type of conversations, I get it. So when I'm on the phone with somebody, you know who I talk to offline, fam? This ain't I'll run circles around, you know what I mean? But like that's kind of the vibe, man. And I'm curious, when you were a young professional in those rooms, right, with some of these big black, moguls, right? How do you act in those rooms, right? Like how, if you're not from that, right? What was that like, man? And how was it? You don't want to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Like, how do you?
I didn't say a thing. I mean, I'll just be honest. I never said anything.
That's real.
Right. Like, I was a young person, but it was also a long time ago, right? Where the internet just simply was not in the phase that it is right now. Yeah. Right. I was in 0.5 web, not even 1.0. Yeah. Right. So it was really different.
Just really the World Wide Web you was on. It was
like just coming out of the AOL walled garden and people understand like what to do. Like, oh my God, Chrome, what is this? Yeah. Like Twitter, YouTube, like. For perspective, so when Twitter was doing the invite only invites, I distinctly remember sending it out to all of the journalists who I know. Mm-hmm. And some of them responding like, what are you doing? Like, take my name off of this spam thing, Ken. Like, and I was like, wow, like this is the future, guys. But like, that's always been me, like I was like winning contests, making movies and things with logo when I was in like the 4th grade and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I had remained on the forefront. So, but I also often say that my family, for instance, never even understood what I did until the iPhone came out. I think the iPhone, the app structure really helped just create a platform that was easy for universal understanding. And I think like we're right at that period right now for Web3, like NFT, all this stuff. Like my position, you're on there right now, you're just getting hustled, right? You're getting hustled. Like the business is not there yet. Right. But when the business does get there, it'll take off. Right. Like there's a lot of value that's there right now.
So I would love to hear your. So because me and Walt talked about this last week, and I definitely me, you and Walt got to connect, bro. But what are your thoughts on Web 3.0 right now? Like what excites you about it? And then where do you feel like the business needs to catch up to get to that point where it's mass adopted?
I'm always excited about progressions in the web because they're generally freedom, right? First phase of web created freedom within publishing, right? Just do your history books and look at all that like all the calamities that accompanied the introduction of the printing press, right? And how far we went to like make sure certain people didn't have it, this and that, right? So Web3, the same thing. I've often felt as though much of the early phases of the web would simply become like expected consumer behavior.
Yeah.
Right. Like all of this will at one point simply be something you're expected to do on what might become public highways. Right. Because I think there's a larger argument to say like the internet is free, it's public, right? And shouldn't artists be able to just simply traffic things on that? Like I think we like I know we're talking about Web3, but I still would think we're in Web 1. Right. Like, in all honesty, like Web3 is more so about what the people who got on Web 1 are now doing online, and less about what a truly matured population does with it. And I think, like, even when you see what's happening right now, what scares me about what's happening right now is that I'm seeing too many people rush to the hustle and the scam. Right. Because much of what's happening with NFT, blockchain, all that right now, is just taking advantage of the ignorance of the masses, because you've got too many uninformed who are able to easily access it.
Yep. And everybody's trying to get a bag.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, that's human nature in a capitalist economy, right? Like that's going to be a part of it. But I think that noise is taking away from the true discovery, right? And as somebody who's been doing this for over 20 years, right, that's the biggest difference between the two, right? I mean, in the span of the time I've been online and working in this space, we have gone from, oh, I won't believe that because you read it online, to, oh, I don't believe that because you can't find it online. Yeah. That is such a drastic shift that people are so comfortable with. I think it's worth unpacking and investigating. You know, like it's just look at how easily your perception of what is true was shifted.
That is so true, bro. It kind of goes. First of all, that's a great point, man. Like you said, I do remember the days where it was a blog and you'd be at, randomwebsite.com and it's like, all right, man, this is all right. I get it. Versus now, man, like I can't believe that there's some brands that still don't even know the importance of SEO at this day.
Oh, indeed. But there's a lot of noise on social. So a lot of brands don't believe the two are connected.
That's insane in itself. How could you? That's what I'm gonna keep it real. And I will say it on air, bro. Like that's what I get with a lot of my customers, right? So one of the first things I ask, bro, is how are you quantifying social, right? And you know what most of the time people say to me? I just want to get more likes and followers, right? And I'm like, no kidding, right? Like, but what does that mean, right? So if I'm able to get you 20 followers and you're not able to determine or even tell me out of these 20 people that liked, who came to the website? What was that journey like? They came to the website and bounced off, right? Do you have retargeting in play? Are they your subscribers to your email? What is the sentiment? Are you listening to the conversations and what they're saying about your brand? All of these things, right? And then first and foremost, right, if I go to your brand and I can't find you on Google, I don't care what it is, right? Like, I'm going to go to that first couple links, and that's the trusted voice, right? And the fact that people don't see the connection in the two and how your brand awareness and your authority and all that plays into your credibility online. It's insane to me.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised, right? All of this has happened very fast, and everyone has just been ushered into it in an instance. Right? So that's also something to consider. I would also think about and here's kind of where the conundrum lies, right? Okay. Traditional advertisement has been like it says in the definition, broadcast, right? It's broadcast. Right? Yeah, bro. So broadcast is one way, like message. We pay to send our message, right? And all of a sudden, dialogue is valued, but we've never spoken. We don't have a perspective. a lot of brands are finding themselves in this position, right?
Yep.
How can we create value or show personality that will thus create value or provide a perspective or share our perspective on key initiatives that then create trust with consumers, yada, yada, yada. Many brands haven't invested in this, right? And so that's, I think, what makes this such a deep shift. Because there have been some brands that have, for a long time, established and maintained a dialogue with the wider audience, their niche communities, what have you. But now, now brands too must have personality.
Oh, you have to. You have to. And we have to know where you lie on certain issues along with that.
Exactly.
Along with that. So, matter of fact, my question to you, bro, because you've worked with some great brands, right? Some awesome brands, right? Do you think it's more challenging working with a brand that already has awareness, like some of the brands that you've worked with, or is it easier, or would you like prefer working with like a let's say a startup brand that doesn't have that awareness? Do you think what do you think is the bigger challenge?
Bigger brand.
Okay,
bigger
and why
brand.
so?
Bigger brand. Bigger brand has an established perception and reputation that has been invested in internally in terms of budget, but also internally in terms of people who have put together the ideas that live within those campaigns and what have you. That doesn't say that it's right, but that's the hurdle right now. And hey, to be clear, that could have been right up until yesterday.
Exactly.
Right? Like that, that's how fast our world is changing, and that's how fast the expectation of the consumer changes. Because yesterday it could have suddenly become wrong because your main competitor took such a drastic step that reset expectations within your category. Right? Like that's where we are right now.
Yeah, that's and plus for me, like on the outside looking in, because obviously I've never been a social media manager. I just know my personal brand and what it does, whatever, right? So I would think it's easier because you have a blank canvas and you can really let your creativity do the work with a startup, right? But like if you go to a well-known brand, doesn't that limit creativity in a way? Or it really depends on what leadership thinks, right? Because that's where you really need to get the buy-in to invest in some of these initiatives. Or what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, so these are two different questions, right?
Yeah.
So to answer the latter, it's more so that, the new brand has a clean slate. It's not fighting it doesn't have to overcome the hurdle of what it's already established.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly.
What you've already established could be fighting against you in your creative.
Exactly.
Right. So that's something that you've got to consider when you're looking at old brand versus new.
Have you had some of that? Like where, if you have, right, in your career, I'm pretty sure you have in your career, right? So when you go to a brand that's established, how do you get your new ideas, bought in? How do you inspire others around you?
Any successful brand will have to deal with that. Right. And like that's kind of the curse of success.
Exactly.
Right. Like if it works, you will have to pivot at a certain point, right? Because like if it works, it's going to take you down a certain road with momentum and what have you. That's great, right? But you're not meant to travel on these roads forever, right? And that's the difference, right? We aren't in the Sears or Toys R Us worlds anymore, right? And those brands were what they were forever and didn't move. But the moment the world required more, those brands ceased to exist.
Yeah. So I remember Sears and Toys R Us. Oh my goodness, bro.
Yeah.
Insane.
All that.
Insane. So being that we're talking about this, bro, we'd love to hear from you, right? So what is one campaign? I think I know the answer, but I would love for the audience to know, right? What is one campaign or one creative work that you really hang your hat on that you're extremely proud of?
So this will have to be my closing thought because actually I got to jump.
All right, cool.
Let me see. I would say I got two. Two. Right. And they both from my BET family, right? One was the mannequin challenge that we did, right? And why? Taping, like most award shows today are live. Plain and simple, right? In the age of social media, it's very hard to maintain interest after the taping, after you have a red carpet and everyone knows who was there, what happened during the show. Why would you watch it? In this one instance, we were challenged with this along the time when the mannequin challenge came into fruition. Like, I was on the plane heading to Vegas for the show when the challenge was breaking, landed on the ground, immediately socialized it via email with all stakeholders, met in the production meeting the next day. And on the tape day of the show, actually got the whole red carpet to do it. It's actually on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Check it out there, what happened. But that was great because social is something that's often beholden for the brand, but handled by a unique few. So it was one of the few instances in which the social team was able to involve everyone in a social stunt, right? And that, I think, always bodes best for just success, circulation, what have you. So from a team perspective, not only was that strong, but also multi-platform, right? What I mean by multi-platform is that we trafficked that video online as long lead promotion for the show because it was obviously tied to the promotion itself of the show. But I think after the fact, it was featured in the linear broadcast as part of that as well. So it really helped us bridge that gap between the tape and air. The next thing was basically we brought back Rhapsody in the booth on the red carpet of the Hip Hop Awards, right? Rhapsody being such an iconic franchise for the BET brand, and us also wanting to acknowledge the rappers of note who, had come after the sunsetting of that show, right? So your DJ Khaled, your Rick Ross. Not that they weren't around during that age, but they never got the opportunity to go into the booth.
Exactly.
So I think that might be on my LinkedIn profile too. But it was really making magic to see both of those very established rappers kind of have a moment that they wanted to have when they were young children with the host of the show, right? Like it was truly iconic, truly special. And I think when you're in brand positions and you're able to do something like that, that means so much to people, but also helps with the promotion of your show.
Yeah.
It's one of those special things.
Yeah, man, that's fire to hear. And I know you got to go, bro. I want to say shout out to Rob. That's my bro, man. Love you for free, bro. Shout out to my guy. And just for you, man, before we go, Ken, man, just thank you for everything, brother. And I'll say it on air. I tell you in person, brother. Like, I love you for free, man. I love everything that you're doing. Thank you for taking shot on a young brother from the Bronx, man. Thank you for making me see bigger than what I saw. And thank you for always having my back, brother. You've been a solid dude from day one and always, man. And I love you for free for it. And, man, just want people to know that you solid, man. I love you, man.
Hey, that means so much to me, man. Again, like I always said, thank you for even coming up to me that day, making the introduction. Your friendship, support, and partnership has been so great and meant so much over the last few years and months. Like, you were the first person who I met outside of the pandemic. Just to come out of my bubble, right?
I know it's real. That's how you know.
Indeed. But in all honesty and seriousness, man, I'm so proud for what you're doing. So happy to see what you continue to do at Hootsuite. And, this has all been part of our plan. And I look forward to meeting in person again soon.
Brother, love you for free, man. And thank you for everybody that joined in. Thanks for another episode of episode 6 of More Than a Title. And we see you guys next week, man. Love, bro.
What you know about me? Seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? I done it all, just want it all. Oh, what you know about me? I seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know